The UFC is back in 11 days' time with UFC 324, Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett, and today we have a tier list video. And we're going to be ranking every single fight on that card in terms of excitement. We're going to be putting the fights that I am most excited for in the S tier. We're going to be putting the fights that I am least excited for in the D tier. And we're going to start with two fights. And we're going to be putting both of these fights in the A tier. We're going to be jumping straight into it. We've got Sean O'Malley versus Song Yadong. And we've got Deiveson Figueiredo versus Umar Nurmagomedov. Now, the main part of the excitement comes by the way of two fighters. And those two fighters are Sean O'Malley and Umar Nurmagomedov. Reason being, Song Yadong and Deiveson Figueiredo have recent losses to Petr Yan, who is the current champion. And the narrative surrounding these fights is, in terms of Song Yadong versus Sean O'Malley, if Sean O'Malley wins, the likelihood is that we're going to get Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley 2 at the White House, which is absolute cinema. Absolute cinema. And on the flip side, if Umar Nurmagomedov beats Deiveson Figueiredo, which I believe he will, then we've got a fresh matchup. We've got Petr Yan facing the next biggest question mark in terms of the bantamweight division. Yan's basically beating everyone else. And the questions surrounding Umar have always been there. Umar versus Yan. It's a really, really intriguing matchup. So we're not going to waste too much time on these. I'm going to put them both in the A tier. I'm super excited for these fights. I'm super excited to have these fights so close together as well, because we're going to get some real big answers following these two fights. So I'm going to throw them straight in the deep end of the A tier. Super excited for these fights. I cannot fucking wait. We're going to be moving on to the next fight. And the next fight, in my opinion, is one of those fights where the UFC just want to see someone go out. And that is going to be Arteba Gautier versus Andre Puliev. Now, I mean, Andre Puliev was losing his last fight against Nick Klein before he got the finish. Before he got the finish, he was losing the fight to Nick Klein. Arteba Gautier has been murdering everyone. He has been flatlining everyone. And he is on an absolute tear. And the reason why I'm so excited for this fight is just because we get guaranteed violence. I don't think this is going to be making it past the first round. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. But I don't think this one lasts more than 3 minutes. I would be confident making that bet. What also excites me is the fact that you can never rule out a fraud check, right? You can never rule out a fraud check. Fraud checks come out of nowhere. I think at this stage, Arteba has proven himself enough for him not just to get fraud checked. And I don't think that Puliev is going to be the guy to do that either. But this is not a prediction video. This is in terms of excitement. And if we're talking about terms of excitement, I'm really excited for this one. We're chucking it straight in the B tier. We're going to chuck it at the top of the B tier as well. Moving on to a fighter that he doesn't get enough credit. I mean, people talk about underrated. This guy is the embodiment of underrated. I believe that Charles Johnson could very well be the most underrated fighter in the UFC at the moment. And he's going to be facing Alex Perez. Now, like I said, when we talk about excitement, Alex Perez is not up there for me. I mean, he's great. He's always been around. He's a very familiar face. He's fought the who's who of the division. And he's losing to the guys at the top. He's losing to Asio Almabayev. He's losing to Tatsuro Taira. He got that win against Mateus Nicolau, which came out of the blue. That was... Not a lot of people were picking him to win that fight. And he won that fight. He won that fight by knockout in round 2, which was crazy. At the time, it was crazy, but he's just done absolutely nothing since. Now, Charles Johnson is very rarely in a boring fight. Charles Johnson knocked out Lona Kavanagh in his last fight. Charles Johnson knocked out Josh Van a few fights before that, who is the current flyweight champion if you've been living under a rock. Charles Johnson is awesome. Big fan. Big Inner G believer over here. I'm not as excited to see this fight as the demolition that we might have waiting for us over here. And I believe that the chances of this going to the distance is very high. I think this is probably going to be a back and forth fight. If we see a finish, might be on the side of Charles Johnson. You never know. Alex Perez could flatline him. You never know. Mateus Nicolau can attest to that. But In terms of excitement, we're going to be putting it in the low B tier at the moment. We're going to jump straight into the next matchup, and we don't really need to say much about this matchup. Adam Fugit versus Ty Miller. I mean, this is the piss break, right? This is the piss break of the card. We're getting it nice and early. There's 2 female fights on this card, and in my opinion, they don't fall into that category, but this one does. This is the definitive bottom of the barrel fight that we're going to be watching in 11 days time. And we're not going to waste any time on that. We're going to jump straight into the next matchup. 2 of my favorite WMMA fighters. Now, I was always a Rose Namajunas fan, and she's back. She's back against Natalia Silva, who is my second favorite WMMA fighter at the moment, just behind Dakota Tcheva. Favorite WMMA fighter in the UFC. And this is kind of old guard versus new guard kind of situation. I think we're gonna see a changing of the guard here. Once again, I'm not really focusing on making this as a prediction video, but a lot of these are kind of obvious just by the way that I'm talking about them. And I'm excited to see the coming out party of Natalia Silva. Just beat Alexa Grasso. Previous to that, beat Jessica Andrade. Previous to that, beat Vivian Araújo. We're not going to be ranking it any higher than that. And I would say at this point in time, we're going to be putting it in the B tier. The B tier is probably going to look quite full by the end of this video. And I think it is at this stage where we can just jump straight into the S tier. The opposite sides of the spectrum. Now, this one's tough for me, right? Because happened with Max versus Ilya. Happened with Gene Silva versus Lopez. I just don't like it when my favorite fighters get matched up, man. And these 2 guys are 2 of my favorite fighters. I was talking to Arnold Allen earlier today. I was DMing him and I was saying the exact same thing. And it's painful. It's painful when when your 2 of your favorite fighters gets matched up, because you have to see someone lose. And in this situation, the likelihood is that we're going to see one of these guys get brutally flatlined. And I'm going to be watching the fight like this. You know, it's going to be a tough watch. It's going to be one of those ones where I'm in front of the TV. I'm not sat down on my sofa, dude. I'm walking around my living room. My heart is going boom, 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 boom. Because one of these guys is probably going to flatline the other one. I'm not making a prediction on this one at all at this point in time, because it just hurts my heart too. But I think it goes without saying that this fight is the fight that I am most excited for at UFC 324. The real main event. The people's main event. Maybe not. People are probably going to be indifferent about that. A lot of people hate Gene Silva. And I mean, he's an emotional guy. He shoved Lopez after the loss. That's a bad look. I didn't like that at all. But in terms of fighter and in terms of entertainment, dude, there's not many fighters in the UFC that are more entertaining than Gene Silva. There's not many fighters in the UFC that are as underrated as Arnold Allen. Spoke about one a minute ago in Charles Johnson. Arnold Allen is exceptionally underrated. And bang for bang, he went up against Max Holloway in the last 10 seconds. And dude, he caught him. And with Gene Silva's aggression, you never know. You never know. And all I'm saying is, if we're looking at bets, dude, Arnold Allen is an underdog. Woo! You know what I mean? Arnold Allen as an underdog is it's pretty tasty. So I think it goes without saying that this is the most exciting fight in UFC 324. And I think second to that, we're going to jump straight in with Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje. I think this is you could swap these out depending on how you see it. The ramifications for this fight is obviously much, much higher than this. But it just comes with that asterisk of why is an Arman Tsarukyan fighting? Why isn't Arman Tsarukyan fighting? I mean, at this stage, we know. But I think just in the general nature of how busy Arman Tsarukyan has been in his time off, he's taken the missed opportunity very well. He's competed 7 times within the last year. grappling tournaments, wrestling tournaments. He's been doing it all. He's been keeping busy. But I think obviously this fight comes with an asterisk because people would have wanted to see Arman involved. So for me, I'm not going to be putting that higher than Arnold versus Gene Silva in this point in time. And I also think that in terms of excitement, pure excitement, this is going to produce more of a barn burner. It's a tale of two stories, right? Either Paddy gets chinned because he leaves his chin out, or Justin gets subbed because he's not the best defensive grappler, especially when it comes to pure submission artists. And I think Paddy Pimblett could exploit that, and we could see a relatively boring fight if it doesn't go Justin's way. Whereas when we compare it to this fight is just a fucking unstoppable force versus an immovable object. And the next fight that we're going to be talking about is Amanda Nunes versus Kayla Harrison. Now, they're just doing it a little bit too late, aren't they? And I think the reason why I'm not as excited for this fight is because both fighters have a foot out the door at this stage. I mean, I don't think it's an unrealistic scenario that we see both of these fighters retire in 2026. And for that reason alone, it's not as exciting to imagine with a win, this comes next for either of them. It seems like Amanda's coming back for a one and done. It seems like Kayla, I don't know how old Kayla Harrison is at this stage, but she's not young. 35 is she? Yeah, she's 35 years old. How many more years is she going to be fighting for? I don't think she's even going to be fighting for another year, personally. I think with a defense against Amanda Nunes, you can tick off your career. You can tick it off and say, okay, we've done everything. We didn't get the Cyborg fight, but we've done everything else. And Kayla said herself through the entirety of her career, and even before she got into MMA, people were talking about the Amanda Nunes fight. Once she gets that done as a defending champion, there's nothing more. And in my opinion, that just, outside of legacy, I think legacy is the biggest thing driving the excitement for this fight. And I think outside of that, it's just not that compelling to me anyway. Call me a casual, but I mean, people, Ariel Helwani has been a big advocate for the time-honored tradition of why is this not the main event? Because people just don't really give a fuck about it. And I know it's brutal to say that, but they just don't. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of buzz online about it at all. So we're going to be ranking this in the B tier. Moving on. We've got Cameron Smotherman versus Ricky Turcios. Now, there was a period, there was a point in time where Ricky Turcios was actually pretty exciting. You know, he won the Ultimate Fighter. He had that viral speech where he was saying, peace to the world, love one another, blah, 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 blah. But then, I mean, he walked into Raul Rosas. There's not high stakes. He's coming off 2 losses. And on the side of Smotherman's just a bit of a, you know what I mean? Just a bit of a, I mean, who's getting excited for a Cameron Smotherman fight at this point in time? He's lost his last 2. I'd rather your losses come by finish. When we're talking about excitement. And these guys just aren't really exciting to me. At all. You know, I'm not really excited to see Turcios go like this for 15 minutes. I'm not really excited to see Smotherman pick at range. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I'm just not really excited for that fight. So we're going to be putting that in the C tier. We're going to put it right there. Now, moving on, we have got Josh Holkett versus Denzel Freeman. Now, Denzel Freeman's fought once in the UFC, and he just didn't look very exciting in this fight. He won, but Josh Holkett just came off his debut, where he got a finish. I mean, the finish was against Mac Jimenez, who is a BJJ guy. Not really known for anything special on the feet, so it's kind of expected. So I just think in terms of this, it's just going to be a bit of a big boy slugger, which is great. It is great. And in fact, it's more exciting than a Turcios versus Smotherman at this stage. So we're going to be putting that in the C tier, and we're going to be moving swiftly on to Modestas Bukauskas versus Nikita Krylov. Now, it's funny because Modestas Bukauskas was one of the first fighters that ever interacted with me on my Instagram. I think he was one of the first fighters to either share, comment, or like. He was one of those guys, but this was when very, very early on, like 4 years ago. And he's been on the radar since. Obviously, he's from England, and I think this is more exciting than the Hockett fight. I don't think this is as exciting as the Nunes versus Harrison fight. So we're just going to be putting it low B tier at this stage. We're going to be putting it low B tier because you never know. It could be exciting, but equally it could be a boring decision, tit for tat, where we don't really see much action happen. I'm rooting for Bukauskas. I'm hoping Bukauskas gets a finish. We can expect him to get a finish. We can expect him to pull it out of the bag. He's had impressive performances, and he's had impressive performances as of late. 4-fight win streak. So he's carrying momentum. On the other side of things, you've got Krylov, and Krylov, like I said, Krylov at a point in time was exciting. At a point in time had momentum. And I think there's a certain level that Nikita Krylov loses to, and I think that level has definitely dropped in recent years. He's just lost to Guskov. Previous to that, lost to Reyes. And both of those will come in round one finish. Come by round one finish. And I think Bukauskas can find it. I think Bukauskas can definitely find the finish. And in which case, you know, it's there's a level of hype there. There's a level of hype there, but it's just not enough to push it past this point. So we're going to be putting it low B tier. Now, moving on to a fight that I am super excited for because it seems like it's just going to be a round one finish, right? And I'm more excited for Derek Lewis versus Waldo Cortez Acosta than I am the Gaultier versus Poliev fight because this seems very one-sided, right? It seems very one-sided. However, on the side of Derek Lewis versus Waldo Cortez Acosta, he fought 5 times last year. He dropped one to Sergey Pavlovich, but he fought 5 times last year and he won 4 of them. And he won 3 of them by finish. Waldo Cortez Acosta has probably gained the most stock last year in terms of fighters in the UFC. And I think his momentum's going to continue. He's fighting Derek Lewis, so one of these guys is probably going to sleep. The likelihood is that we're probably going to see one of these guys go to sleep within the first 2 rounds. So I am super, super excited for this fight. And in actual fact, I think I'm more excited for this fight than Figgy versus Umar. Now, that might just be the casual fan inside of me. I know in terms of technicality, we're talking, these are worlds apart right here. But this is a very exciting fight for me. I'm super excited for this. We're not going to waste any time for this, but we're going to be putting it, sandwiching them in the middle of the bantamweight contender fights here. And this brings us on to our last fight of the card that we're going to be breaking down here. And we're going to be talking about Alexander Hernandez versus Michael Johnson. Now, I am a big Michael Johnson fan. I love Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson continuously provides really exciting fights. And that's the way it's always been. He's been in the game for a long, long time, 24-19. And Alexander Hernandez has shown times where he just doesn't show up. Sometimes he shows up, sometimes he doesn't. And I think when you're facing Michael Johnson, who is carrying a bit of momentum at the moment, when you're facing Michael Johnson, you have to be on it. You have to be on your P's and Q's. You have to be dialed in. And Johnson just beat Zell Huber, who was a very highly touted prospect. Ultimately, I think Michael Johnson versus Alexander Hernandez is an extremely exciting fight just because of Michael Johnson has the potential to get flatlined. He also has the potential to flatline, and vice versa. It's like the stoppable force versus the movable object. Michael Johnson's never in a boring fight. So for that reason alone, I'm going to be putting it up here. We're going to be putting it high B tier. But yeah, I think this makes sense. This makes sense at this stage. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments. Let me know if you think I've got this horribly wrong. But I think in terms of the 14 fight card, this is the obvious top for me. This is the obvious bottom for me. I think these are fairly undeniable, and then I think the rest of them kind of they could be interchangeable. And I think this is the perfect time to wrap up the video. So thank you very, very much for watching the video. I appreciate it. If you can, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Do all of that YouTube shit. Hit the bell. Get notified every time I upload a video. I hope you have an amazing day, and thank you very much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.